Welcome to the Flashmasters podcast. Flashmasters recognises and celebrates the best flash photography in the world through education, awards and community. To find out more and to join the Flashmasters community, visit flashmasters.co. Here are your hosts, Helen Williams and Neil Redfern.
Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Flashmasters podcast with myself, Helen Williams.
And me, Neil Redfern.
And in today's episode, we also have a very special guest who we're not going to introduce just yet.
Although it is in the title of the podcast, as I said before, so it's literally no surprise whatsoever. But we'll pretend it isn't.
Let's build the tension. So yes, Neil, before we introduce our special guest, do we have any Flashmasters news this week?
We do indeed. Not too much, because at the time we're recording, actually, we do have a Flashmasters live stream today for members with pick time. But by the time this podcast is out, that's already been done. However, it will be available to re-watch. So if you are interested in learning more about pick time, and why wouldn't you be, it is the leading online supplier of client galleries for photographers, then you can re-watch that stream in the Flashmasters community as of now. But the big news is that next Tuesday, so again, if you're listening to this podcast in the week it comes out, on Tuesday the 28th of February at 8 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST. I'm not going to do my New York accent again. I'm
surprised you haven't practiced that.
To be honest, as a southerner, I was more offended by your London accent.
What do you mean, governor?
Apples and pears, Mary Poppins.
So so that is going to be on Tuesday the 28th. Jeff Tisman, who is an incredible wedding photographer from New York, he's going to be joining us. We can't wait for that.
I can't even hear you say New York now without thinking about you
New York. I was going to be singing it. Yeah.
No, I just, sorry. I think I'm now triggered. Every time you say New York, I'm waiting for the New York.
That's not bad. It's not bad.
That was my impersonation of you doing it.
Oh, no. Well, that's why I thought it was really good.
No, it was terrible.
Anyway, that's enough about that waffle. Helen, who is joining us live in person today? This is a first for the podcast.
I'm going to have to. Neil always tells me off for like throwing my arms around because I then move away from the mic and it's
the chair moves and I hear the chair movement.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so my arms are going because I'm very excited to announce that we have the one and only Martin Hobby with us today.
Thank you very much for joining us, Martin. This is a real honour. A real live person.
I know.
I can almost touch him. I won't do again.
Martin, lovely to have you with us.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you. It's actually, I was like, why have they invited me? Little old me.
Because I find you a very interesting person, Martin.
Thank you very much.
I can honestly say that when we were coming up with the idea of guests, and we do want to introduce having more guests on the podcast, we thought, because it's new to us as well, let's try and think of people we can have in person first. Obviously, that limits us very, very dramatically in who we can ask. But you were the first person that Helen suggested.
Yes, Martin and I have known each other now for a few years, and Martin's shot some weddings with me, and I've never had such a calm presence on a wedding day, yet with someone who's also so full of energy and just really cool. So yeah, I've always said it's quite difficult to describe Martin because he's very cool, he's very enthusiastic, but at the same time has such a sense of calm and security and assuredness that actually, as someone who flaps around quite a lot on a wedding day or can panic quite easily or feel like I'm doing a terrible job, when I've got Martin working with me, he calms me down. And I'm sure that's just because you've got a huge amount of experience in this field.
I feel like I've died and I'm listening to my own eulogy now. Lovely words, thank you very much.
I will say as well, that's actually pretty consistent with what you said to me in private as well. So yeah, I can promise you that that's exactly how Helen described you.
Yeah, brilliant photographer, very calming, but also very fun.
Thank you. I've been doing it 30 years this year.
Wow.
So, yes.
I was going to make a dinosaur joke, but I thought that might be a bit too far.
Yes, no, I shot my first wedding back in 1993 alongside my dad, who was also a wedding photographer back in the 60s and 70s. And one of his friends was getting remarried and sort of asked my dad to photograph it. And he went, well, I've not really done it for ages. And I was doing photography at GCSE at the time, I think. And he said, well, why don't we do it together? So I went along, and he was kind of setting up the groups, and it was quite traditional, really. But there was actually one shot I took on that wedding that I still love now, and I still really think it holds up. We were following the wedding car back from the church to the venue, and it broke down. It genuinely broke down. It wasn't kind of like a cheesy setting up. You've probably all seen that picture of like the bride lifting up the bonnet. No, the car genuinely broke down, and we pulled up behind it. I jumped out, and at the time, I've still got the camera. It's a Nikon F from the 60s, and it hasn't even got an inbuilt light meter with it. So I didn't even have time to grab the Western Master 4 and do a light meter reading.
This is proper photography talk.
Right over my head.
Oh, God, we're being found out. Not only have you said that you actually trained for photography at college or school, but you're also talking about film cameras, and we're thinking, oh, God, yeah, our facade is going to drop.
We've got a real photographer with us today.
He didn't have a screen on the back of the camera.
No, it didn't. No, it was just that, and with a 50mm lens, that was all I was shooting with. So got out my dad's car, run up, and I've got this shot of the driver tying the exhaust back on with a bit of string, the groom leaning over the car as well, and then the bride sitting in the back leaning around laughing. And I just guessed the exposure and got the shot. So that was
cool.
Documentary photography 30 years ago.
I was just about to say, because I assume for most people photographing weddings in those days, then surely that wouldn't be in the thinking of a photographer. Because am I right in thinking you would go there with a very set list of idea what you're going to shoot, and then before you know it, you've finished for the day, and then you're off home because you've taken your prescribed 30 shots or something?
Pretty much, yes. I mean, for this wedding, because we were invited as guests as well, I mean, going back in time, pretty much the only thing I can remember about it was this instance where the car broke down and I got that picture. I mean, everything else I took that day was absolute crap, but I've got that one picture from it. I've still got that print. I think because I liked it, I have still kept that print. I've probably still got the negs from that wedding somewhere, because I have got negs going back to certainly when I was shooting full time from kind of 96, 97 onwards.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must have a massive house. Where do you store them all? We complain about storage these days, that we can fit onto these tiny little digital hard drives, and you've still got negatives.
Yeah, they're just in boxes in the garage.
I just have so much respect for anybody who can shoot a wedding on film. The thought of it just filled me with dread. Like, could you do it now, stupid as it sounds? And I don't even mean could. Obviously, you could, but I'm thinking more like the psychology and the anxiety-inducing moment of thinking that I'm going to pass over everything now to a lab.
That was the good bit about shooting on film. Whereas these days, we're all spending so much time sitting behind a computer.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, you'd shoot a wedding and then you'd give that roll of film to the lab, and it's like, right, job done.
See, I'd just be thinking, what if I made a mistake and I don't know about it? I wouldn't be able to sleep, I don't think, until I've got those images back.
I think shooting film again now after having that mindset of digital and backups and security.
Exactly.
But there wasn't the option back then. So true. That was just the way things were, really.
Oh, I have so much respect for you for being able to do that. You must have been very young as well. Looking at you here, you said you've been shooting for 30 years. Like, you must have been very, very young when you started.
16. Shot my first wedding at 16.
Wow.
Yeah, that is incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure for a 16-year-old. Even if you were helping your dad, it's still a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent now. I remember when I was a teacher, there was one of the teachers there who back in the day was also a wedding photographer on the days of film. And apparently on this one day, I'm not going to mention any names. I'm hoping some of my ex-teacher friends are listening, because I bet they were like, I know who did this. But there was a story, which was a classic one, where he had booked 2 weddings, so had sent another teacher to shoot one, and apparently when they got back, is this even possible? The story went that there was no film in the camera, so actually he hadn't taken any photographs, and then they had to lie and say that said photographer was in a car accident and that the camera broke. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Is that possible?
I've done it.
What?
Oh my God!
Possible.
I did not expect that.
The way Neil's face was like, Helen, you're talking rubbish. This can't even be a story. You dreamt this.
It was, I don't know the year. I'm not particularly a football fan. It was the year when England actually beat Germany 5-2 or something. I don't know. It would have been
5-1.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
I was just about to, I can't remember exactly. I think Michael Owen scored a hat-trick. It would have been early 2000s that. Yeah, 5-1 in Germany, I think it was.
That was it. And it was at the reception, and I used to shoot I used to have 2 or 3 cameras with me. So I used to shoot medium format for all the formal stuff. But then I always used to shoot 35mm Fuji Neopan 1600 film, black and white film, for documentary stuff. And the boys were watching football in the reception, and I've walked downstairs in the bar area just as England have scored, and I've gone click, click, click. Wow, what are the chances? I've walked out the room and gone, I've got no film in the camera. Oh, gutting. That's never going to happen again. Put film in the camera, went back downstairs. England scored, got the picture.
Yay!
Oh, you did get it again. I thought, right,
So, yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine the fear.
But
That is the only time that it's happened. I mean, it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Yeah, if you're not talking like you went out to a wedding, then got back at night, and then there was nothing. Is that what you said happened with yours?
Yeah. The teacher who had the business had booked 2 weddings, sent another teacher to photograph the other one, and came back and there was no film in the camera. So yeah, apparently they did totally lie and say that the photographer was involved in a car accident and the camera broke. And then I think the lead photographer, because obviously we're used to 14-hour days then, but they used to just basically do the church and the formals and come home. So then the lead guy then went back to the wedding because they noticed the same day or later on and had taken some photos.
And this isn't a photographer who's still working now?
Well, no, they're full-time teachers.
I'm not
even sure if they're teachers anymore.
Why are you winking at me? Oh, you'll tell me later.
Oh, I'm not.
Someone that I know as well.
Oh, Neil.
Wow. I can't wait to find out who this is.
Really? It was them? Oh, my God.
I wouldn't have thought. Helen's just written it down for us. I am shocked.
Guys,
and this is Martin Chung's weekly shout-out.
Nice.
I am joking about that.
We might just keep Martin as a
Martin
third guest.
Chung.
He's fitting in very, very well. Before Martin's, we set off like a train, but we've not asked our quick-fire questions.
Oh, yeah.
To get to know Martin.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry, I turned away from the microphone. I'm very sorry.
So I actually think, but it's going to be far better without these. This is just nonsense, actually. So I much prefer to hear about what Martin was actually talking about. But should we just fly through these? So literally, we're going to give you no time to think about these, Martin. I'll do one, then I'll pass it on to you, Helen. So
Okay.
my first one, favourite film?
Lost Boys, maybe. Labyrinth, something 80s fantasy.
Cool.
Love it. Do you have a hidden talent?
No.
Favourite song?
Oh, God, that I could be here forever.
I know you're into your music. I've looked at your website.
Yeah.
Done my research.
Oh, favourite song? I impossible.
Can we go to band? Favourite band?
Impossible to answer, depending on the mood.
Never heard of them.
Which Hogwarts house did you be from Harry Potter?
I don't know either. I would probably anything but Hufflepuff.
Right, okay, I like that. Okay.
I like the
Neil?
idea of Ravenclaw, but I don't think I'm actually intelligent enough to be a Ravenclaw.
Okay.
Probably be Slytherin, unfortunately.
I was expecting
This
the Slytherin.
means nothing.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm only going to ask one more. I've
Go on
changed my
then.
mind. But I'm going to ask you to go with yours because I think mine's going to induce fear into Martin.
Oh goodness me. So one more from me then. What's your favourite month?
May. Maybe.
Maybe. Is
It's
that
my
the same
birthday
question?
in May. We'll go with May.
Oh, we're May birthdays too. All the great people are born in May.
Yes,
Are you a Gemini or Taurus?
I'm a Taurus.
Oh.
I think it's all our parents on summer holidays, isn't it?
The worst thing, if you had 3 months on, it tells you what you don't need to know anyway. This is the big question, Martin. Why don't you like frogs? For those that aren't aware, I was looking at Martin's website before, and it actually says I don't like frogs. Don't ask me why. So I thought I'm going to ask you why.
Oh.
There is a couple of reasons, and frogs genuinely do make me go cold. I know they can't hurt me.
Oh God, I thought it'd be quite light-hearted.
I did actually look into it, and it's usually phobias come from people having traumas sometimes.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a couple of instances of it. There was one, again, when we were sort of early teenagers. We used to hang out in this park, and we went up, and there was a big pond there. And once we went up, there was loads of little frogs everywhere, and not just like, oh look, there's baby frogs. Literally, there was just carpet of frogs everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, hanging out with other teenage boys, we were picking them up, putting them in each other's pockets, putting them in each other's hair, stuff like this. So there was that instance of frogs. And then also there was another one where I was down in Cornwall once and walking along sort of like a cliff top path, and we were doing a loop round back to the car, and we'd actually walked a bit too far to turn around, and we noticed we had to just keep going. There were frogs on the floor, and it was like, started off, oh, this is cute, look at the baby frogs. And then it was more and more frogs. and then it was just a carpet of frogs.
Oh,
And
to
I
be
had
fair,
to walk.
that is-
I had to walk over them.
Oh!
And I hated it. And I think that me not liking frogs comes from just weirdly this little sort of traumatic episode where I know I have really hurt frogs.
Oh, no, I can believe it. I have a weird thing about sponges. We won't go into that now. Say that for next week's episode. Phobia of the week. But yeah, that is. And I apologise for asking now. I thought it'd be a light-hearted tale about.
Yeah. Bring Martin on, he's really fun.
About Paul McCartney's frog song or something, and it wasn't. Anyway, we'll go back to where we're up to, because it was fascinating what you were saying before about, especially shooting film. What point would you have made the transition in? Oh, we also checked. It was the 1st September 2001. Is that incident where you didn't have film in your camera? Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
So at what point did you then move over to... Did you find that transition hard? I've always found this really interesting. Because obviously you would have had your way of working. Digital, when it first started, was pretty naff in terms of the megapixels and everything. Did you resist it for a while, or were you like an early adopter, would you say?
It was a pretty much a straight swap. Missing out the boring bits of the story, I decided to stop being self-employed in 2002, and I went to work for Venture Portraits.
Oh, that's a whole topic in itself.
And of course, working for them, they were currently shooting on a Contax 645 with a Phase 1 digital back.
Right.
And it was 6 megapixels at the time, but I mean, you could still get, I think the largest print we were selling at the time was probably like a 40 by 30 print from it.
Okay.
So it was still sort of blowing up that size just from a 6 megapixel back, really.
Yeah. I've got loads of questions about Venture, but most of them are not probably like very complimentary.
Are we going to get sued?
No, they're not going anymore, are they, Venture?
I believe they are.
They used to be massive. For those that maybe, I think they were UK only, I think.
There was a couple of studios in Hong Kong, and I believe there was one in New York as well.
Right, okay. But my understanding of Venture, having never set foot in one, so also you'll know infinitely more than I do, but is that for those that aren't aware, Venture were a studio, very big, as you say, like early mid 2000s, I would say, and families would go there especially and have like these really high key portraits taken. But the fascinating thing about that has always been how they then sold to those people afterwards, wasn't it? And how they would train you to. Am I right in thinking if you didn't buy things on the day, everything
Charge
would
you
double in price or things like that?
There was an incentive to order in person.
But I know from speaking to people who've worked there in the past that like it's like a sales masterclass almost, like or a guilt trip, however you want to look at it.
I think being a franchise-based business, each studio was managed slightly differently.
Yeah, okay.
So there were some that were possibly more hard sell than others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really don't think me or any of the guys in ours were hard sell.
No, I can't imagine you.
This was probably why we were never in the top 10 of studios.
Yeah.
But I mean, our little studio, it was still sort of turning over £500,000 a year.
Wow.
As family port, and we were one of the smaller ones. Well, I think we were literally the smallest physical size studio, and we were sort of well down the order,
they were
really.
massive back in the day, weren't they, Venture?
Yeah. But it was a really good learning curve, because again, I'd gone self-employed as a teenager. I didn't really have much business acumen, and I think I've got to add this, but the reason why I kind of left being self-employed is my dad and my business partner had passed away in 2000. So I was just limping on for a couple of years, just sort of shooting. I was doing a lot of dog photography, actually. I was pretty much a full-time pet photographer, and weddings as well. And then it came to the crunch, and it was like, no, I've got to go and get a proper job. So still in photography. So then I went to work for Venture, and it taught me a lot. And I think Venture did great things for photography in this country.
Yeah, it's not all bad at all, no.
There are so many people who really sort of run them down, and it's like, oh, why do they charge so much? Whereas a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And other portrait studios really could have learnt a lot from them rather than fighting against Venture.
And their style, although these days we might look at it being slightly dated, was very different to what was out there, wasn't it? Like this real high-key look.
That's it. Everything at the time was still your canvas backgrounds, which, I mean, now people are going back to canvas backgrounds, and I'm certainly shooting on a lot of canvas backgrounds again. But yeah, it really was different. It was white background portraiture, very lively, very energetic. We got people running around in the studio doing pylons and sort of things like that. The hardest thing was from shooting weddings and sort of say doing outside portraits, as I was doing, and then going into a studio and solely shooting on a pure white background. It was at the time, it was sort of quite alien to me, doing more studio-based photography because I hadn't really done anything like that.
I was going to say, was that sort of your first introduction to really using flash?
No, I was actually using off-camera flash back in the 90s.
Wow.
Ooh!
You're an innovator. That's at least 10, 12 years before I was.
What I was doing, because when I was photographing at the dog training classes and dog shows, going back to the pet photography I was doing, sometimes we used to be out in a field somewhere in the summer photographing dogs at a dog show. So we actually had this little marquee tent type thing, and you could buy like slave units for flashes, if you remember those. So it optically kind of sets the flashes off. And I used two Metz Hammerhead flashes, which are about the most powerful flash guns you could buy at the time. I'm not sure what the guide number on them is, but they were sort of mounted on light stands. And then I used a little flash on camera set to its lower power setting that would optically fire the other two flashes. Yeah. So I was doing off-camera flash in a tent photographing dogs.
Amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I just feel like a child who just knows absolutely nothing right now.
Well, that's because we both are, I think, really.
Yeah.
I now feel really old.
Talking to a real photographer, Helen.
I know we are. This is bonkers. Okay, so we've done some pet photography. You've then gone sort of more towards studio base, and obviously that gave, I'd imagine, like lots of different skills as well. What was sort of next after that?
I went to work for a bank.
Did you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I was at Venture from 2002 till 2007, I think it was. And I was I was then studio manager, so I was doing less and less photography. And I was becoming very sort of jaded with it. And I just wanted to get out of photography because loads of people get into photography because they always sort of, I'm jealous of them. They say, oh, I had that moment in the darkroom where I saw the print coming through. And I just can't relate to that. I think I've always been around photography. I knew how to use manual cameras from a very young age. And I actually kind of wanted to get out of it. So I thought, okay, let's just get a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. So I went to work for a high street bank. I went to work for Lloyd's Bank, probably the most formal of banks on the high street. And me being me, I didn't fit in particularly well in the corporate environment. I was only there for 9 months. And I realised that I had to just go self-employed again. I had to do photography again. So I resigned on my birthday as a present to myself.
Aww.
And of course, the best thing about working for a bank, you could do more damage. They see it as you could do more damage if they let you carry on working. So I literally went in, resigned on the Monday. I was back home again by 9:30 that day, and that was it. And I had my holiday saved up, and I had sort of my garden leave, like the 4 weeks pay there. And it was like, right, let's just get back on the phone. And I started photographing dog clubs again and sort of just family portraits. And I was thinking, right, this is what I'm going to do, yeah. And then I think it was about 6 weeks after resigning from a full-time job, I then broke my left foot in about half a dozen places in a skateboarding accident.
Oh, no.
So yeah, that was quite a dark summer, really, because I kind of slipped through all the cracks. I'd resigned, so I was not entitled to any form of sort of benefits and that, and I'd broken it really badly. I still get pain from it now, actually, especially if I'm sort of out shooting 12-hour weddings and things like that. So I broke it in July, I think it was. I was still in a cast in the beginning of October. So yeah, that was awkward. But I like to now think of it as kind of my Robert Johnson moment. But instead of meeting the devil at the crossroads and exchanging my soul for the blues, I've got great photography skills in exchange for mild arthritis in my left ankle.
That's a really nice way of looking at it, actually, because that it would be easy for that just to absolutely like just sink you almost.
Oh, it really wasn't easy at the time at all. But with hindsight, it was a really good thing. It forced me to stop. It forced me to really stop and evaluate what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve from photography. I remember it. I was on the Friday before I broke my ankle. I was about to place an order for £1,000 on some sample products of like and to just go and photograph babies on beige rugs and things, boring stuff like that. And I was like, no, that's a lot of money. Have a think about it over the weekend. And then I broke my foot on the Sunday. So of course I didn't put that order through.
Yeah.
And while I spent that summer just sort of reading and looking at the internet and different styles of photography, because again, being for venture for the past 6 years, I was quite institutionalized into their way of doing things, and things had moved on so much. And you mentioned, was the transition to digital difficult for me? It wasn't because it was just forced upon me, or it was just, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
But photography itself, since I'd been shooting for myself, had massively changed.
Yes.
Between 2002 and this would have now been 2009.
Yeah.
That was the transition between film, and suddenly digital was wow. And also, that was when I really learnt about off-camera flash, because there was a guy called David Hobby, absolutely no relation, and he used to run, it was a blog site called Strobis 101.
Yeah.
And he pretty much taught me everything I know about off-camera flash just from reading his blog posts. I'm not even sure if he's still running it, but yeah, it's certainly worth checking that out if anyone's listening and having a look. The advances in technology and the fact that you now had triggers to fire flashes wirelessly, and you could sync up multiple flashes and they could be 50 meters away or whatever else. It was really interesting times. And it was then that I decided that I wanted to shoot photography a bit more for me. So I wanted to do some more corporate stuff that I was interested in. I also wanted to shoot music stuff. I'm still in the back of my mind thinking about what is my favourite song and what is my favourite album.
We'll ask you again at the end.
That's
don't worry.
going to be going round.
To be fair, it's the hard, because it all depends on mood, doesn't it? And I could probably get 10 different answers on 10 different days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy at all. And whatever it is you choose, almost guaranteed when you're driving home later, you'll change your mind on it.
It was the wrong one.
Yeah, what I was just found interesting is that when you said before about when you were unfortunately injured, and it gave you that sort of thinking time, that's what a lot of people I think had a couple of years ago. And I know a lot of people have changed their business models because of almost enforced rest. So I think that's actually, and I think most people now have probably got better, healthier businesses and lives because of that. So in a weird way, I do agree. Hopefully, it was a good thing in a way, that sort of enforced stop, reset. Where do I want to go?
Yeah, I just looking at you going, I can't imagine Martin just photographing babies and being happy.
What also is crazy, it's how you said, obviously you went to work in a bank and you got a skateboard injury. Those two things almost like shouldn't be in the same sentence.
Especially when we sat here now looking at Martin in person.
He looks very, very cool, by the way.
Yeah, he is. He's such a cool guy. And I love the fact, like, you've got a tattoo on your trigger finger, don't you, on the inside that says smile.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're looking at the guy with a nose ring and bright orange T-shirt, which matches his bright orange socks, and multiple piercings and tattoos, and think, yeah, I could never see you working in a bank either. So you've had little periods of life where you've been forced to do something that's not quite you.
Yes, it was an interesting time. They still remember. I mean, I was only here for 9 months, and they still talk about me. Apparently, there, it was interesting. In the 9 months I was there, I had someone throw up on me in my little cubicle.
A customer or a colleague?
A customer. I had a customer offer me a
What?
and I got punched in the face in the banking hall.
Wow, who knew working in a bank could be so exciting?
Yeah. I also thought I worked for the BBC when I joined there, because apparently I was really into it, but it was a whole new world for me, and I was just keen to learn new stuff.
Yeah, it's a different world to what you've been used to. But I suppose for a brief amount of time, everything's going to be exciting when it's new.
It was, but everyone, all the other staff and even the manager were really nervous around me because they thought I was genuinely a BBC reporter.
Undercover like the Cook Report or something. Or Jeremy Beadle.
So I guess we've just covered our banking era. It does feel like this is your life, actually.
Yeah,
It never
I was curious. I
intended
don't know
to
how
be.
you two actually met then. Presumably, obviously, through weddings. Because, again, we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Helen and Martin have been friends for quite a few years now. Is that true to say?
Yeah.
Did I know
Probably
you before I moved up here?
No.
So I think it was when I moved up, originally sort of from, say, the Bromley area in Kent. My wife's from Holmes Chapel in Cheshire. And it was always our goal to move up here. And we finally got round to doing that goal in September 2018. So when I moved up here, I think I just kind of joined some Facebook groups for photographers in the area, and I just went in the groups with my personality, and you gauge who you're going to get on with from that.
Yeah.
And I know that yourself, Helen, just knew that I'd get on with, and just bantering groups really.
Yeah.
And then sort of other people that I've since become close friends with up here. But I think that's it. I just I muscled my way into the northwest scene, as it were.
I'm here. And but then obviously second shooters are required. And I'm like, this guy just looks really cool, because you've got to be so careful when choosing second shooters. You want someone who can actually shoot well, but someone that kind of fits in with your brand. And I definitely wouldn't want to take a really stereotypical. This is where I'm going to get in trouble.
Ooh.
Just a stereotypical, like, I don't know, just
What
a
is
boring
a stereotypical
person.
photographer, Helen?
Oh,
Is
let's
this where
not.
we talk about what you should and shouldn't wear for weddings?
Yeah, I just didn't want someone turning up in like. Although you have some wonderful. I'm sure I've seen you in a waistcoat before, but it was a very cool one.
They don't fit me anymore after lockdown.
Keep on digging, Helen. I still want to know what this stereotypical photographer looks like.
Oh, well, I just didn't want like some old guy who would be wearing like a suit he's wearing in an office with a really boring tie, who had no banter and was just a bit of a weirdo. Can I say that? Am I already banned?
I totally get. And to be fair, it is true that you do want something you're going to bounce off.
Yeah.
So did the first time you meet then on a wedding day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually.
So it could have gone wrong.
Yeah, it could have done. Yeah, and I was like, yes, like he's as cool as he is in person as he is online, and I think you're someone who, especially just your online presence, is very authentic. Oh, totally authentic. I'm sure I've seen you naked several times. Maybe that's another thing we could talk about, is your love of selfies and your wonderful your art.
I do like selfies. Well, the selfie thing, I've always sort of taken them, and there are a few of me online. This is where I'm going to give another shout out to Martin Chung, because he loves my shark picture.
Amazing.
That was a
shark picture. Have I?
The shark picture came about. I was photographing a beachside wedding down in Kent in Whitstable, and the groom, he's actually a video editor. He does live video editing for Formula One. That's his job. But his passion, he creates what he calls filmumentaries. So they're documentaries about films that he loves, but he kind of pieces them together from unseen footage. So it kind of tells an alternate version of the film. They're absolutely fantastic and amazing. And he did one about Jaws. So, and being a beachfront wedding, I just one day decided to do a selfie of me. I was naked. I was holding my camera in front of my bits, and I had goggles on, and I'm wearing like a hula kind of necklace around me.
A lei, is it? I think it's called a lei.
Okay.
I want to know more. Did you have a 7200 or was it more of a 50mm?
Pancake lens. So I took this picture and then I posted it on Facebook, tagged in the couple and said, I've got my outfit sorted for your wedding tomorrow.
Amazing. Well, that's genuinely good, though. That tells you a lot about you as a person and your brand as well.
So where's the shark come in?
Oh, that was it.
That was photoshopped in afterwards.
No, you're right. Sorry, this is it. I was thinking, as I was telling that story, I was like, was I holding the camera over my bits? No, my balls would have been hanging lower than the camera. No, you're right. The camera was up in one hand. I was holding a plastic shark.
Yeah.
Inflatable shark. It was
Right.
it was a really large inflatable shark.
And this went on the internet.
That went on the internet.
Brilliant.
There are also pictures of me naked holding a skateboard.
There you go.
I think when this podcast goes live, can we share those photographs in the group? Are they for public consumption?
Yeah, that's cool.
we're just gonna have the best of Martin's like nudes.
Yeah. Oh, and then over lockdown, I did more nudes.
You did?
Because I did I vaguely dabbled in setting up a YouTube channel, and I did a nude on my sort of kitchen floor. I recreated my body looking like a skull.
Wow.
I don't know if I remember that one. And it's not like I'm like just an online stalker going,
Which
where's
nudes?
Martin's nudes?
Yeah.
No, I remember because in terms of when I invited you to come and second shoot for the first time, being friends on Facebook and through the groups, I was clearly just seeing that you were someone who, like me, is very like authentic and will just go balls out.
So I'm now thinking you saw
Literally.
you saw Martin's naked picture of him holding a shark. Then you asked him for second
And then
shoot.
I was like,
That's
this is the guy for me. Yeah.
I would hate to go to one of your job interviews. What do we wear for the job? Just the shark.
Yeah. I do think, though, that self-portraits, I did a couple during that time as well, are really good things to do. And that's something I'd advise anyone to do because it gets you thinking creatively. So you also said you tried to tried to create yourself as a skull. I want to have a look at this photo.
I did a couple of skull photos, actually. There was one of me sitting on the floor and my body formed a skull. And then I did another one where I had my arms crossed in front of me and I lit it very toppy. And so I looked like a skull and crossbones.
Oh, wow.
I was both inspired for both of them. There was a TV show a few years ago called Black Sails, and it was about pirates and sort of a retelling of the Treasure Island sort of story. And the artwork promoting a couple of the seasons for that were these ideas. So I'd love to say, they were my ideas, I'm amazing. No, I was just recreating these ideas. But yeah, there is a link to the behind the scenes video of how I actually took these, and I used Flash in both of them, so they are Flash Masters related.
We'll get that link and we'll put that in the description of this podcast, so if people want to go and check that out, then you can do so. That sounds amazing.
But yeah, I still now, I do take a lot of selfies. Just when I was down south, I always used to work with an assistant, right? Not so much a second shooter, but I always had an assistant at weddings. Whereas moving up here and not really knowing anyone to take along with me, I just became my own assistant and my own subject for these test shots. So I'd often take a tripod with me. I'd set everything up, and the beauty of now using the Sony cameras that I do, you can control the cameras from the app on your phone.
Yeah.
So it's not as if I have to set a self timer and then run around and take the picture. I can control it from my phone. So
I've never done that though. I know
I've
you
not,
can,
but
but
it's
I've
really
not
cool
done
to
it.
do that. It's really good. Yeah.
So I then started taking selfies at weddings, and I found I was more sharing the selfies than I was pictures kind of from the weddings in some way. So yeah, I'd share my selfies and I'd love taking them. If I could get a job of taking pictures of me, that would be my ideal job, to be honest.
We still need to get like a Martin hobby like best of, and you
calendar.
could have a calendar.
Yeah.
He's thinking about it. Oh, does this already exist? Is this a Christmas present for your wife every year?
It has been suggested, but people would not want to buy pictures of me whether I've got clothes on or not.
So these selfies that you take, Martin, are they part of your branding? Do you almost like use them within your marketing? I wonder.
No, I'm not that organised. I think. I mean,
it's a really cool little niche. That actually.
Do you know what it is? There's even listening to myself say this, and especially getting the feedback from you, Neil, saying you didn't know that about me.
Yeah,
it's actually made me go. Actually, yeah, doing documentary stuff in like the 90s and little things, and it was like, if only I was good at marketing, then I'd be a successful photographer.
Yeah, honestly, again, I don't know, because I don't know many photographers who were shooting films like back then in the 90s. But my perception of photography then, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would go there, I said before, like with that list of photos, you would do the list and then you go home. And a lot of that is basing that on my own parents' wedding. They would have got married, way before then. But even so, they knew what they were getting in advance. So if anything, it would be different. I think, that would be, would really help you stand out, I'm sure.
I think again, there was no internet. Everything was still, you ring up the photographer from the Yellow Pages.
You're not even looking at other photographers' work, I guess.
That was it. I mean, I used to also shoot weddings for a local studio, and they'd have 20 weddings on a Saturday, and they would just hire in people to go and shoot them. I mean, you'd get a sheet of paper sent through the post on a Friday that would arrive on a Friday. That would be the wedding you were going to shoot on the Saturday.
Wow.
You just turn up. You'd shoot 2 weddings in a day. You'd be at the registry office at 11 o'clock in the morning. You'd do the ceremony, you'd do the groups. You might go back and do a fake cutting of the cake at the local church hall or whatever. Nick a few cheese and pineapple sticks on the way out, and then you'd be back at the registry office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for another one.
And rinse and repeat the same thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, one of the hardest things is if you don't feel creative, how do you create interesting images when you don't feel it?
Yeah, I just know that for myself, over the last few years, we've been so under a lot of pressure, shooting so many weddings because of the postponements, etc.
Yeah.
And right now, I feel burnt out. I would happily just pack my cameras away. I don't even want to pick them up, if I'm being honest, right now. And I know it's going to come back, but for someone who's done photography for such a long time, like, how do you keep the passion going? How do you keep the fire going? Like, how do you still want to be creative and just constantly, how do you keep going, really?
I shoot quite a wide variety of different genres. So I like the variety. I love shooting weddings still. I love second shooting because that gives you the fun of a wedding day.
I thought I would love to be a professional second shooter.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, no pressure. You're being creative. You don't have to take all the boring stuff. Yeah, it's a dream.
That's it. You don't have to do the editing afterwards.
Yeah.
And I also do a lot of commercial work. And again, over the years, I've done a whole variety. Well, in the past 13 years since I've been self-employed this time round, I was a music photographer for a while. I was sort of shooting for Q Magazine. That was quite good fun. I stopped the music stuff when my lad Ollie was a little bit older and he was sort of more active in the evenings. And I realised I didn't want to be out photographing bands every night. I'd sooner be at home. So then I kind of made the transition into more corporate stuff. But even that is a whole world of things. I've done product stuff. I've done events and conferences, and I do loads of headshots now. And that's kind of probably the main thing I actually do now is headshot photography. And I really like that because some of the most interesting people I've met are guys in suits. And some of the most boring people I've met are guys in bands.
Wow.
Just because, like, everyone thinks, oh, wow, rock and roll lifestyle. But sometimes the rock and roll lifestyle is just sitting in a tour bus, getting out, playing a gig, getting back in the tour bus again.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the C-level management of companies that I've photographed, because I used to shoot for a B2B tech magazine. So I was going out and photographing, like, high-level management of Sony, Hoover, Panasonic, all these amazing tech brands, and for a cover of a magazine. And you'd literally just have 10 minutes with someone. You'd be in their offices. I liked it if the journalist did the interview first, because that would give me a chance to watch the person I'm photographing, watch their mannerisms, see how they sit, and how they'd be comfortable. And I also have a little scope around and plan what I'm going to do. And then I might literally just have, they go, right, are we done? And it'd be like, oh, can we just get a picture? Oh, yeah, all right, you've got 10 minutes for a picture. Ooh. So I'd have to get a shot in 10 minutes. It was going to be used on the cover of a magazine.
Wow.
So that fuels the creativity. And I still like that now. I just love taking pictures. I mean, if I'm not shooting for a couple of weeks, we all love that break where it's like, wow. I mean, I think I've got a break of 6 days now where I'm not shooting, which is like, 6 days not shooting. But I know when I'm next shooting, which will be Thursday, I'm going to be like, yes,
Yay.
bring on the camera again.
Yeah, that's
my wife now over lockdown. She'd be like, please go out with your camera. Just go and do something.
Get out.
It is that creative outlet for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a landscape photographer. I look at a landscape and just see a background in order to put someone in front of.
Oh, I have this so bad.
Yeah.
If I see a stunning sunset, I get angry that I don't have
I hate
couple
that.
to put on the sunset.
Yeah, I agree with you. You do, not you. I mean, I'm the same. We do get annoyed.
Yeah.
Like,
Why
what a waste.
am I not shooting a wedding today? I need a couple. So just magically appear a bride, please. I need a long veil. I've got a sunset. Let's go.
It's like when Facebook friends, they always go, I'm on holiday. You'd love it there. You've got to go. Take a camera. I'm like, what? I need models. I need lighting.
Yeah, I'm sure Neil's even said on previous holidays, like, shall I book a model or shall I find a model? Yeah, just so you can...
That's make it tax deductible. That's because I want to do it. No, it is because I want to do it. But no, that's because if we go to these beautiful places, it does almost feel like a waste, and it's almost like, it's unhealthy in a way, but it ultimately, when you're creative, you do have this need to be creative, don't you? You can't help it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I know obviously I've known you a few years now, and we sit down and have a chat during the wedding breakfast, but there's still so much I don't know about.
Yeah, I mean,
you.
you're already thinking like we could do 2 or 3 of these.
Yes.
You now said like you photographed. I didn't know you shot bands. Like what bands have you photographed?
It was mainly sort of live music, and that started off when I moved to Dartford. Was a new town where I lived down south. I just went to the local rock club or the rock pub to see what live music was on, and I got involved with the local music scene. And this was just when I was sort of finishing at the bank, going self-employed, took the camera down, started photographing the local music scene. They were part of like essentially a Battle of the Bands competition to win a slot at Bloodstock Festival.
Ooh.
So then I got a photo pass to shoot Bloodstock. The first year I shot Bloodstock was 2010, and a band called Gua were playing, and they're sort of famous for spraying out fake blood and other bodily fluids into the crowd. And during their set, I turned round and got a crowd picture of this guy screaming devil horns and everyone covered in this fake blood and stuff. And that actually won me SWPP Event Photographer of the Year. So
how did I not? I didn't know any of this.
This is uncovering like a Pandora's box of questions all the time.
This is why I'm crap at marketing, right? Because if you guys don't know this, how are customers going to know this? It's like, I feel it's bragging almost talking about it. I'm just like little old me taking pictures.
No, but this is so interesting to hear. The only frustration with a podcast is we can't see like what you're talking about.
So I won Event Photographer of the Year, and then from that, they gave me a pass to kind of shoot the festival carte blanche. That's the word. So I just went along with my camera doing what I wanted. I'd also at this time met up with an old mate who I hadn't seen for about sort of 15 years at a birthday party. And he was like, "Oh, what are you doing, Martin?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm still doing a bit of photography, doing a bit of music photography. What are you doing, Russ?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm the picture editor for Q Magazine."
Wow.
So that was amazing. So he sort of kept an eye on my work and stuff. And then he got in touch. He was like, "Do you know what? I'm quite liking what you're showing at the moment. Can you go and shoot a couple of gigs for us?" So I was shooting for sort of like zines in London, and that's the sort of stuff you go out and you ask for a pass to the bands that you want to photograph, and they're just sort of used online. But yeah, actually shooting legitimately, being paid for by Q Magazine was fantastic. And my favourite shoot for them was a band that most people haven't heard of these days, a band called Crystal Fighters. You've probably heard some of their songs because 10 years or so ago they were used in like quite a few TV adverts, but they played a rave in a cave in the Spanish Pyrenees Mountains. And
What?
I was paid to go out there and photograph it. And
Wow.
that was amazing. That was probably the best gig I've ever got.
God, my
Wow.
photography life is boring.
I know, like this is where I know. Before we started recording, we were talking about like how photographers used to be seen as rock stars, but that is so freaking cool. Yeah, it makes like, oh yeah, I go to people's weddings now. I'm like, oh, I don't really do anything that's that exciting, but yeah, a rave in a cave.
That was amazing.
I'm just wondering now. I was just like, oh, I want to pull like and peel all the other things back. I'm like, what else? Yeah, this is. I think like we need to give you like this is Martin hobby section now. I don't know how long this podcast is going to go on for because there's so much I want to talk about. But what would be like what's your career highlights?
Well, yeah, okay. So we're inviting you now because you say you don't like to talk about it because it's bragging, and I totally understand that. But we're now inviting you to tell us then.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the Rave in a Cave was probably sort of my best paid gig. But I mean, the other one I think most photographers would go, "Oh wow," is I actually photographed Rankin once.
That's amazing.
Wow. Like I will say, I only know Rankin. I've only been aware of his work very recently, but I know that Neil, you've been a big fan or sort of very much aware of his work.
Yeah, for those that aren't aware, Rankin is basically, he's a portrait photographer who's shot virtually everyone. I'm just looking at now, the list of who he's shot. So, The Queen, Mick Jagger, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jarvis Cocker, Naomi Campbell, the Rolling Stones, Britney Spears, basically anyone you can think of. And I say the top one there is The Queen, although the top one should be Liam and Noel Gallagher.
Oh my goodness.
So it must have been so pressurised then. How did it even come about you were shooting Rankin?
He is, we've got a mutual friend, and I was invited to photograph sort of their wedding reception, to run kind of like a little photo booth before photo booths were actually booths, and it was just me with a camera, a load of props, and we just set up in the corner of the room. So Rankin was a guest at the wedding, and I'd had a little chat with him kind of before as I was setting up and stuff, and then the bride sort of brought him over for some pictures and that, and I was using a Yongnuo, if that's how they pronounce flash. Yeah. With kind of like a ray flash or an Orbis ring flash adapter. I can't remember exactly which type of one it was, but a ring flash adapter on it. Because again, for a photo booth, that gives really nice, clear lighting. You haven't got to worry about a light coming in from one side and people blocking it and things like this. So yeah, shooting it with a ring flash. So Rankin's in front of my camera and the flash just stopped working.
Oh,
and it was just like, wow, this is awkward. And even he's kind of gone like, sort of shrugged and like, sort of, I know this is podcast, so he's like shrugging, like, what's up, sort of thing. And I'm like, hold on, I've got another one. So again, always have spare equipment.
The cringe.
Just grabbed another flash. I know it was a matter of seconds, really. Grabbed another flash, put it in, and got a few shots of him and sort of other people he was with at the party. But then awkwardly, because I'd done my bit and I was there just having a bit of fun as well. And then throughout the evening, everyone kept introducing us to each other, going, "Oh, Martin, have you met Rankin? He's a photographer." Or, "Oh, Rankin, have you met Martin? He's a photographer." And we were just like, yeah, yeah. But yeah.
Amazing.
Wow. I almost sank into my chair when you were talking about the flash dying. It's like, this is your grand moment. And then
Yeah.
it just didn't work. Ooh.
So you've shot Rankin. I've actually shot, this is true, you're not going to believe me, I shot David Bailey once.
Oh,
What?
Yeah.
What was the story behind that?
He was getting married. It wasn't the David Bailey. But no, that's true. Literally, not a joke. I think my third ever, maybe fourth ever wedding was David Bailey. I thought, I've always got this. Like,
You've got to have that as a tag on your website.
but then the story falls down very fast, whereas yours doesn't. Yours holds up. Did the image? Were you happy with the image that you
I
took?
am. Yeah. I think they're on one of my websites still somewhere.
Cool.
Yeah, you've just done so much.
Yeah, you've already beaten me anyway. I mean, Raven a Cave beat me. Shooting Rankin, I've got no chance now.
No. Like I said, yeah, I'm just the random person in the corner who's like, I just picked up a camera a few years ago and I just shoot weddings. I've got nothing cool to say like that. Oh, I'm gonna have to start working on a plan. How to be more cool.
Are there any other highlights, Martin, you want to say? Because I know that you're very modest, but we want to know.
There probably is. I'll be driving home going, I should have mentioned that time I fought a T-Rex on a building that was burning. But no, I can't think of anything.
No, but I mean, to start shooting weddings when you're 16 with film, to go all the way through what you've done, like to shoot all the cool music things, to do that off your own back as well. Like you've obviously, you know, I think anyone who gets into music photography, you don't apply for a job, you've got to really graft to do that.
Yeah, or you've got to love music.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm still thinking of what is my favourite song or band. But that's it. You've just got to love music. You've got to have the passion for it. I mean, I even went out to see Youngblood last night with my son.
Oh.
And I only had my camera phone on me, and I still can't resist.
Yeah.
I don't watch the gig through the phone. I watch the gig. But I could just tell that something was going to happen, and he was kind of out in the crowd a little bit. And even on my phone, I lifted it up, and it's just, you're anticipating moments
instinct.
like you are at a wedding. And he actually had a toilet as part of his set, and he stood on it, and I was like, he's going to jump. And even on my phone, I was like, I pressed it at the right time, and I've got a picture of him like jumping caught midair. So yeah, it's in the blood, isn't it? I think that goes back to why am I still passionate 30 years later. It just is in the blood.
Yeah, you'll never be able to turn it off now.
I mean, I even posted up this morning, it's like, I'd love to go back to shooting music, and a few people are going, well, why didn't you do it? And it's just like, because that means going out into Manchester 4 or 5 nights a week, and I quite like sitting at home with a glass of wine.
I get that. Yeah, I do understand that.
So I know I could literally be here, or we could make this podcast like another 2 or 3 hours long.
This is fascinating. We definitely need a part 2 and 3, I think, in the
I
future.
think so. But yeah, obviously we can't go on forever. So I'm just thinking about, like, you know, how we draw this to a nice conclusion. And as someone who has done so much and photographed so much, where would you love to see your photography take you to next? Because I know you do workshops, and that's something that goes on with the headshots, but what's next for Martin Hobby?
Yeah, the workshops, I've done 2 now. I've got another one actually on next Monday.
Oh.
There's still a couple of spaces left if anyone wants to get in touch. But that really came about, people just kept pestering me to do workshops. And I was always like, why does someone want to learn from me? I just turn up with a camera, press a button, go home. That's all I do.
Well, I think we know that from the wealth of 30 plus years experience.
Yeah, but I think that is it. I had one person, Anna, and she just kept pestering me, and I was like, okay, I'll just do a bloody workshop to get you off my back.
Well done, Anna.
I did a workshop, found out I like talking about me, and I like talking about photography. Who knew? And they're going, okay, so yeah,
Brilliant.
Maybe a bit more training, but I'd love being behind the camera. That is it. That is the passion for me. And I think that's why it's taken me so long to really do workshops. It's to have that belief in myself that people do want to come, and that I have something value to teach people.
It's so funny because I think it's an inherent thing in so many photographers that even with your CV, you know, you've shot all these different genres, you've been paid in all different genres, you've been shooting for 30 years, you still have this inherent, I can't teach anything, I've got nothing to give. So you say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
When I said that you should get back into that. I've said to Helen before, like, people want to know, like, you know, you've got a really successful wedding photography business. All I do is turn up at a wedding. But there's more to it than that. So it's just unfortunate sometimes. I think it sort of goes hand in hand. You can be an excellent photographer, but I don't know if it's a creative mindset, the creative the personalities of photographers tend to also mean that there's a lot of self-doubt almost.
Absolutely, yeah. 30 years later, I've still got imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I still am. I mean, in fact, I call my training winging it because every job I turn up, I'm winging it.
No.
Well, you won't be, but I understand how you feel like that.
Well,
yeah.
I think that's it. It's the serious side is I've got 30 years worth of experience that I know I can wing it.
Yeah.
Because I can rely on that 30
Yes.
years worth of experience. And if something goes wrong,
You know how to solve
you've got
it.
a plan A to Z already as backup.
Right, well, I think that's been absolutely incredible. Thank you, Martin, genuinely. When we invited you on, we were thinking, I remember before we were thinking, what should we ask? And we thought, well, let's just, hopefully it'll just sort of like, there'll be enough to make a good podcast. There's been so much, more than I know that I expected. So thank you, Martin, for sharing so much with us.
Yeah.
you.
Sorry, it's been really nice to have someone here in person, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
And you know what? I've now got imposter syndrome. We're now in the presence of a very real, very talented, very experienced photographer, and now we're winging it.
If we do another one, though, you do have me back. Can we wear clothes next time?
That was our secret. All Martin's details will be... Actually, we'll put them in the description, but it's a podcast. No one ever looks in the description. Where can people find out more about you, Martin?
Instagram, just search for Martin Hobby. There's a few pages on there. You'll find me. And LinkedIn for photographers.
Ooh.
I'm absolutely smashing it on LinkedIn, getting the work in at the
Really?
moment. It is the best social media site ever.
What?
As we're ending the podcast, I won't
Put
talk
that
anything
right at
more
the
about
end, and now that's like, we'll have to save that for round 2. I didn't think... Again, my perception of LinkedIn is full of bankers.
Yeah. But then I suppose for headshots, that's perfect.
Well,
You've got all
yeah.
the corporate world just at your fingertips. But then corporate people still get married.
Something to think about.
There is a
something to
light
think about.
bulb moment going on right now.
But yeah, go and check out Martin's work. His work is amazing. Thank you again, Martin, for joining us. It's been a real honour.
Oh, I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, we're going to close this now then, before Helen gets to say her catchphrase.
No,
So we'll see you all next time. Thank you again, Martin.
Keep flashing. Yes.